Jaimar Video Productions, and Cactus Jump Studios, presents Health and Information, February 2024, with Dr. James S. Bissland, and special guest, Jim Stovall.
Hello and welcome to Health and Information. This is our first quarter for 2024. And I got to thinking about 2024. It's 48 years since I graduated from high school. That means that the class of 24 will be my age in 2072. That's kind of an interesting thought concept. But anyway, today we have a special guest with us that is very well known around the country as a motivational speaker, motivational trainer. He's an author of over 50 books. He's got 8 movies that he's written and helped choreograph and produce. And he also is the president of the Narrative Television Network, which I'll have him tell us about. So I'd like to welcome Jim Stovall. Welcome to the program.
Well, it is great to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Now, Jim has a very unique story, and I've asked him to begin the program to telling us the story of how he got to where he is now, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics on books and movies. Jim?
Well, I grew up here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we're talking today. And as a young man, my only ambition in life was to be an All-American football player and then go into the NFL and make my living playing football. And the scouts and coaches and people that monitor those sorts of things assured me I had the size and speed to do that. So I just figured, hey, it's just a matter of time until I'm making my living playing football on Sundays. And well, each year before you go play big-time football, you have to get a physical. They want to make sure you're totally healthy before they take you out and try to kill you. So I remember this one year, the physical was taking a lot longer than I ever remembered. And, you know, they poke you, they prod you, they weigh you, they measure you, they do all this stuff. But then this doctor came in and he shined a light in my eyes. And another doctor came in and he shined his light in there. And a third doctor showed up and ran a couple of tests. And eventually the 3 doctors took me down this long hall and sat me down at a table. And they said, we don't know exactly why and we're not sure when, but we do know someday you're going to be totally blind and there's nothing we can do about it. And your whole world just stops right there. I instantly knew I wasn't going to go into the NFL and make my living. I checked it out at that time. And to this very day, there's never been a blind guy in the NFL. If you ever watched the preseason games, you would kind of question that a little bit. But I realized, okay, I got to go do something different. And at that, almost at that time, I was introduced to Olympic weightlifting, and I got on the national team and became the national champion. And I got to conclude my athletic career doing that. And so that was, you know, not my original path, but it ended well. And then I went on to college. And when I was in college, they didn't have audiobooks or anything else, and they weren't prepared for me. I was losing my sight quickly. I couldn't read anymore. So they assigned students that were in each of my classes to read me my textbooks. Well, I met this one young lady named Crystal who was in one of my classes, and as soon as I met her, I told the dean and the professors, we're not going to need any of these other people. I'll make it all the way through here with her, or I won't make it. And this spring we will have been married 43 years, and I'm still making it through this life with her, both literally and figuratively. And I graduated from college, but at age 29, I did wake up one morning and I had lost the remainder of my sight, and I began learning how to live my life as a totally blind person. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I'd never met a blind person in my life. I didn't have any idea what they did. I had no training, no nothing. And the only plan I could come up with that day involved moving into this little 9 by 12 foot room in the back of my house. And in my little room there, I had this telephone and my tape recorder and my radio. That was it. That was my whole world. I really thought I'll never leave this room again. And now, fortuitously, I realize, before losing my sight, we used that room in the back of the house as our television room. So I knew across the room there somewhere, there's a TV and a video player, And one day, out of just sheer boredom, I went over and put on an old movie. I'm a fan of classic films, so I went and put on an old Humphrey Bogart film called The Big Sleep. And, I thought I'll just be able to listen to this and follow along. And it worked for a while, but then somebody shot somebody and somebody screamed and the car sped away. And I got really frustrated. And I said the magic words. I said, somebody ought to do something about that. And the next time you hear yourself say somebody ought to do something about that, you just had a great idea. And the only thing you got to do to have a great idea is go through your daily routine, wait for something bad to happen, and ask, how can I avoid that? And the answer to that question is a great idea. And the only thing you got to do to have a great business is ask one more question, how can I help other people avoid that? Because the world will give you fame and fortune and everything you ever wanted if you just care about them and solve their problems. Because as in most things, it's not about me and it's not about my problems. It's about getting in the real world and helping other people solve their problems. And that was the beginning of what became known as the Narrative Television Network. In 1988, we were among the first to start with video description, doing movies and television and all those things. And now it's amazing to me how all primetime programming is described in most first-run movies, and it's been a wonderful process. And that was the beginning of everything else that's happened in my life, was losing my sight and out of my own need and frustration, creating narrative television.
So you create that in how do people access narrative television?
Well, now it is available on virtually all primetime television and most cable television shows. And there are a number of other companies in the business now. When we started, it was just us, and we trained a number of other companies on how to do this, and many around the world overseas. And on virtually every television and cable system, satellite system in America, there's a button on the TV or on the remote that says second audio program or languages, and it's different on different televisions. And unfortunately, they haven't come up with a universal design on that. I believe they will in the future. But if you can find that, and if you have trouble finding it, you can call your cable company or satellite company. It's absolutely free. It's on your TV, and all primetime programming and most other cable programming is described. And most first-run movies are. Netflix has a section called Described Films, and there must be several hundred on there all the time. So, and I was on a flight the other day coming back from Los Angeles with one of my assistants who's been with me since we were struggling to get anybody in LA and Hollywood to pay any attention to us and to take me seriously that we wanted to do TV and movies for blind people. Well, we get on the flight to come home, and she said, "Boss, you're not going to believe this," but she said on the in-flight movie menu, they have 24 described movies right here. And it was quite an emotional moment for us, because I remember so many flights out to LA when nobody would even pay attention to us. So it's amazing to see it become a reality, and now it's just a normal part of the media. I mean, there are people, I write my books, and my books get turned into movies, and the studio, they don't even know I'm blind. They don't care. They bought my novel, and if you got a best-selling novel, they want to turn it into a movie, and they'll say, now, we have to do this thing called description before we release it to the platforms. And I just tell them, yeah, I've heard a little about that. We'll take care of it. And
just a little.
Yeah. So I don't even tell them I'm blind. They don't care one way or the other.
They did in the beginning, though.
In the beginning, yeah, they didn't know what to do with me, because I write books I can't read that are turned into movies I can't watch, and it in the beginning it frustrates people, but and they don't know what to do with you. And, I'll be honest. I mean, when I first lost my sight, the two things that really scared me was I'm not going to be able to read and I'm not going to be able to drive. And, well, at that time, the U.S. Department of Education was doing a experiment on compressed digital audio. And for some reason, I got signed up in this deal. And they wanted to see how fast people could listen to audiobooks and retain the information. Well, when the experiment was over, I just kept going, and the result is I can listen many multiples faster than the normal speed, and I read a book every day. There hasn't been a day in the last 35 years I haven't read a whole book, including this morning. So becoming a reader made me want to be a writer. And so I thought I won't be able to read. Well, I read more books now than anybody I've ever met. And I thought I won't be able to drive. And, as a young man, being able to drive is kind of a cool thing. But I bought a limo. In fact, I've had several over the years. And, sitting in the back of a limo riding around ain't bad either. So, it's a matter of, it's not a matter of reading like everyone else or driving like everyone else. It's a matter of getting the information and getting where you want to go. I thought, I'm not ever going to be able to go anywhere. I have 2 million miles now with one airline. I go more places than anybody I know. So, as blind or visually impaired people, I think we have to realize it's not a matter of how we do it, it's a matter of what we do. And there's always a way to get from here to there.
You talk a lot in your lectures that you do around the country about you can change your circumstances just by changing your mind and making decisions.
Yeah.
Tell us how you got that concept and explain that a little bit more.
Well, somehow in the process of losing my sight, I captured a vision of who I could be. Sight's a precious thing. I had it for the first 15, 20 years of my life, and sight is very convenient. It matters. Sight tells you where you are and what's around you. Vision, though, tells you where you could be and what's possible. And given a choice between the two, I'll stay with vision because it has given me everything in the world I wanted. And, once you start seeing yourself differently, things change. And I remember for me, it was that day I got out of my little 9 by 12 foot room. I'd been in there for months. And I thought, I'm going to die in this little room. I thought, there's guys in McAllister went to prison and they're living like I do. And I don't know what it is out there I'm afraid of, but it can't be any worse than this. So I decided to get out of my little room. And the first day I got out of my room, I didn't write a best-selling book or start a company or become a millionaire or speak to millions of people in arena events or anything else. I walked 52 feet down my driveway to the mailbox. And it probably took me 15 minutes, 20 minutes to do it. And I'm shaking like a leaf covered in sweat. And I finally made my way down there and I touched that mailbox. And as I did, my foot touched the curb at the edge of my street. And even though I'd lived in that house for over a decade as a sighted person, I realized for the first time I live on a magic street. Because I realized that street that it took me all those months to get to, it goes to the corner and connects with another street that intersects with another street that leads to another street that would take me anywhere in the world I ever wanted to go. And it did, and it has, and it still does. But the important thing for all the people watching or listening to us right now is the fact that you all live on a magical street. It'll take you anywhere you want to go. Ralph Waldo Emerson said it best. He said there's nothing capricious about nature. There's nothing capricious in nature. Capricious means try to fool you or trick you. And what he's saying is that if you have a dream, a goal, something you want to do, you have the ability to do it. The fact that you have that dream inside of you signals that you have the capacity to achieve it. The question is never can we, the question is will we. Every animal that has an instinct to do something, whether it's run or swim or fly, they have the ability to do that. And you and I, if we have a dream or a goal or ambition, we have the ability to achieve that. It's simply a matter of, as Napoleon Hill said, anything the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve. And I believe that, and I still do, because it just keeps coming true every day in my life.
You travel a lot.
Uh-huh.
And as you just said, you have over 2 million miles on one airline.
Yep.
So when you travel, you obviously have a whole lot of people that are on planes with you.
Yeah.
And I recall a story you told about a guy who you gave him an Olympic gold medal for attitude.
Yeah. Well, there was a guy, I got on the plane and he sat down next to me and, I said, "Hi, I'm Jim Stovall," and he gave me one of those wet fish handshakes, and then he mumbled something I assume was his name and then started complaining that he didn't like this airport. He didn't like the city we were in, the airport we would be connecting through. He didn't like our final destination. In fact, I don't think he liked me, but we didn't get that far into the conversation. Because if you travel a lot, you know there's only two kinds of flights. There's the conversation flight, and then there's the headset flight, kind of depending on your seatmate here. And I immediately determined this is going to be a headset flight here. In fact, I invented a third category, hereafter known as the high volume headset flight, because I didn't even want any leakage from this guy. Well, after a few minutes, the young lady comes down the aisle and said, would you like the chicken or the beef for your dinner today? And I said, I believe I'd have the chicken. Well, this guy sitting next to me, as you heard, if they ever add an event to the Olympics that I would call the Marathon Bad Attitude, a worldwide competition to see who has the worst attitude of anybody, he'll have a gold medal too. Well, I told her I'd like the chicken, and she said, sir, would you like the chicken or beef? And my Olympic seatmate there says, it doesn't matter. She said, well, sir, we have plenty of the chicken and beef on board. Which would you prefer? He said, it doesn't matter. And she said, well, sir, you are a first-class passenger here on our airline, and it's my job to give you extraordinary service, so could I bring you the chicken or the beef? And he said, it doesn't matter. Just get out of here and bring me something. You know, a real ray of sunshine, one of those guys that brightens up the whole room just by leaving. Well, after a few minutes, she comes back down the aisle and gives me my chicken dinner and gives him the beef dinner. And for the next 40 minutes or so on that flight, I timed it on the official Braille watch because I knew I'd be telling you this story someday. But for the next 40 some odd minutes, he told me everything you could imagine and some things you could probably not imagine that were wrong with the beef and why he wished he had the chicken. And then I realized that's the way most people live their lives. There's a few people that make the right decisions. They're the healthy, wealthy, happy, successful people that get whatever their own definition of success is out of this life. There's a few people that make the wrong decisions. They live in places like Leavenworth and McAllister and San Quentin, and we don't have to worry about them too much anymore. And then there's the vast majority of people you will ever meet in your life who never make a decision at all. They spend more time planning their 3-day weekend than they do what are they going to do for the rest of their lives. And if your audience doesn't get anything else out of our brief time together here today, I want them to know this life we're living right now, this is the World Series and the Super Bowl and the Olympics all rolled up into one. And you can write your own ticket and be anything you want to be. You can act like your life is a movie script, make yourself the star, and live the life of your dreams. Or you can just plan nothing and live nothing. But it's all up to you. But anytime your life isn't turning out the way you want it to, get up off your blessed assurance and change the channel. Because it's all about you.
You're the star.
Absolutely.
Now, you said you've written over 50 books. What is your best-selling book?
My best-selling book is The Ultimate Gift. It was my first novel. I really never wanted to write a book. After I started narrative television, we got an Emmy Award for our first season on national television, and I was asked to speak at the National Association of Broadcasters. I'd never been a speaker before, but I was trying to sell all the broadcast stations and cable networks in America on carrying narrative television. So I thought, well, they're all going to be in one room. I'll make a speech and tell them all about it. I just thought it was a big sales pitch for me. Well, I made a speech, and afterwards 2 or 3 people asked if I would come and be the keynote speaker at their conventions. And the next thing I know, I'm doing all these arena events. And I was actually on tour with Dr. Robert Schuller and Dr. Dennis Waitley, 2 of my real heroes. And they both encouraged me to write a book. And Schuller endorsed my first book, and Dr. Waitley wrote the foreword. And it came out and told my story of losing my sight and my football career, but becoming an Olympic weightlifter and starting narrative television, just what we've been talking about today. And I put it out in a book called You Don't Have to Be Blind to See. And I thought that'll be my last book. That was my story, and there it is. And, well, the publisher said, Jim, this is selling really well. Why don't you write another one? So I'd been interviewing movie stars for the Narrative Television Network, and because I had to fill out these 2-hour blocks of programming, and we did a lot of classic movies, and so if we had on a Michael Douglas film, I interviewed Michael Douglas or Katharine Hepburn or Frank Sinatra or Jimmy Stewart or whoever it was. And so I had a lot of their stories, so I put it in a book called Success Secrets of Superachievers. And then I wrote a book called The Way I See the World. And then Steve Forbes and I did a book called Great American Success Stories. And I was running out of stuff to write about. I'd written everything I knew and a few things I only kind of suspected. So when the publisher said, wow, you're selling good, write another book, I thought I better make up a story. So in 5 days here in our office, where we are today, in between my meetings and my phone calls, I dictated what has now become the ultimate gift. And there was never an edit, never a rewrite. I dictated it. Easiest book I ever wrote. And that became my best-selling book and became my first movie. And that has opened up so many doors for me because, I'm absolutely convinced if Mark Twain or the Apostle Paul or William Shakespeare were alive today, in addition to writing books, they would be making movies because, I have 10 million books in print in several dozen languages around the world, but that impact pales in comparison to one successful film. And it's just amazing what the impact movies have.
So you've met a lot of famous people. You've met presidents,
Sure.
movie stars, millionaires, billionaires. So who is the number one person that influenced you and made you or helped make you kind of who you are?
Well, there are a lot of people, and I could go to a lot of them. And as you said, behind you there on the wall here in our conference room are signed letters or photos from the last 6 presidents of the United States. And to think I'm this guy from Oklahoma that was stuck in my 9 by 12 foot room, and I've interacted with all those people. And then the movie stars, and my father, I just lost him a few months ago at age 92. They've all impacted me, but there is one person that's probably impacted me more than anybody else. And when I was at the university, near there was a school for blind kids. And I went over to the school, and I knew I was losing my own sight, and I told the principal I'd like to teach here. I just thought I'd learn more about it or help out, or I don't know what I was trying to do. And I said, look, I have no background training or experience in working with blind kids, but I'd like to teach here. And you can imagine how excited they were to see me. But they said, we have one kid you can work with, volunteer one-on-one. And I said, okay, what do I teach this kid? And she said, well, that's it. Christopher is 4 years old, and he's totally blind, and he has these other physical problems. And we have determined that he's never going to learn or grow or advance any more than he already has. So all we want you to do, Jim, is keep Christopher away from the other kids, keep him quiet so they can learn their lessons, because he's never going anywhere else. And the only training they gave me to work with this poor kid was 2 things. They said, Jim, you got to keep his shoes tight. He don't know how to tie his shoes. We're afraid he's going to trip and hurt himself, and you got to keep him away from the stairs. He doesn't know how to climb up and down the stairs, or he's going to be injured. Other than that, we don't care what you do. Well, the first day I sat down, and this little kid, and he was much smaller than you would expect a 4-year-old child to be, and he was indeed totally blind and had a lot of other physical problems. And I sat down, I said, young man, before I leave here, no matter how many weeks or months or years it takes, you are at least going to learn how to tie your shoes and climb the stairs. And he said, no, I can't. And I said, yes, you can. He said, no, I can't. And I said, yes, you can. He said, no, I can't. And if you've ever spent any time with a 4-year-old, they can do this all day long. I'd never experienced that in my life. And we began working every day. Boy, we were learning how to tie our shoes and climb the stairs. Meanwhile, I was going to the university, and I couldn't read anymore. I couldn't get around anymore. I didn't know that I could exercise my right to choose and make a quality decision and change my life by simply changing my mind. I didn't know then what you and I have talked about today. So I prepared to drop out of the university. I went over to the school for blind kids. I got there early, and I met with the principal. And I didn't know they dropped Christopher off early that one day, and he's standing outside the open door to the principal's office as I went in and told her, look, this is going to have to be my last day. I can't come here anymore because I'm dropping out of college. I don't know what I'm going to have to do, but I can't make it. Well, I went out to tell Christopher goodbye, tell him I loved him, and tell him I hope someday somebody else would show up and spend some time with him. And he turns to me and said, "Yes, you can." I said, "No, I can't." And he said, "Yes, you can." And I said, "No, I can't." He totally turned the tables on me, and he hit me like a ton of bricks. Either Stovall, get up and do something with your life, or quit lying to this kid. Because if it works for tying your shoes and climbing the stairs and finishing college and creating lives and careers and making your dreams come true. And that's what happened to me. So when you ask who's influenced my life, really Christopher did. And I think that's true in most areas of life. Teachers, helpers, mentors will tell you somehow in the process of trying to help other people, I got more out of it than they did. And that certainly happened to me with Christopher.
And that's usually the way it works.
Yeah.
So you've got two books you're writing currently, and you were telling me you have a new movie coming out. What's the new movie? The
new movie is Will to Win, and it's one of my homecoming historicals, and it features Will Rogers. And we will shoot it here in Tulsa at Will Rogers High School, and I will be the umpire in that film. And I'm usually the limo driver in all the movies except one. In Ultimate Legacy, I worked with Raquel Welch, which was fun in and of itself, but she played this aging heiress in Kentucky. And in Louisville, there was a car museum there, and they had a car there that was owned by Prince Charles, now King Charles. And there are only two of them in the world, and they agreed to loan it to us for the movie. But as soon as our insurance people and the movie studio found out about it, they're not going to let the blind guy close to this $6 million car. So I got to be the bartender in that one. But in most of the films, I'm the limo driver, but I'll be the umpire. And yeah, I have two books that'll be out this spring, Words That Shaped Our World. It's the second volume of the world's greatest quotes, who said it, what was the context historically, and how I think it applies to us here in the 21st century. And then I have a book I'm really excited about called Giving the Ultimate Gift. And it started 12 years ago. A single mom down in Dallas saw the Ultimate Gift movie and took her teenage boys, to see it. And they thought, it'd be great if we did what they do in the movie. And each of the boys do a community service project for every year they're in high school. Well, they did that, and a couple other moms joined in, and they formed a little thing called the Young Men's Service League. And then other chapters started, and other chapters, and they do these, they call them Ultimate Gift Projects. Well, here we are 12 years later. There are several hundred chapters in 36 states, and right now we have 11,000 boys doing Ultimate Gift Projects. And I had a group of the boys write their own experiences in their own words. What did you do in your community? Who did you help? And what did you learn in the process of doing that? And then I write a commentary with each of those. And I'm really excited about it, because it's not about me. It's the kids telling their own stories, and they are truly, truly amazing.
That sounds like it's going to be an interesting story, interesting movies. Yeah. So if you had 2 minutes to say something to people who were down on their luck, or down on they were depressed about their situation, whether it was because they've lost sight, what could you tell somebody in 2 minutes that they could take and change their life with?
Well, I would tell, whether you're down on your luck, or you have a disability, or you've been through a divorce, or you lost your job, or you have no money, it doesn't matter. Life is about figuring out what you want to do and finding a way to do it. And I would tell you, the quickest way to get out of depression and all of the things that go along with being down on your luck and having problems is to go help somebody else. I don't care who you are or how bad it is, you can help somebody else. You can pick up the phone and call somebody, you can write them a note, you can be encouraging, you can help them unload their groceries. I don't care what you do. But get out of your own head and quit worrying about you and go worrying about someone else. I have people around the world call me, because I have 10 million books in print, and my phone number and email address is in all of them. So we hear from thousands of people, literally from every corner of the globe. And most of them want to know, how do I get rich? How do I make money? And I have to tell them the hard news. The only people that make money work at the U.S. Mint. They print dollars. The rest of us have to earn money. And the only way you earn money is by creating value in the lives of other people. So I come here to work every day. And at first I worry about the millions of people that hear my speeches, read my books, watch my movies, listen to the radio shows. If I first worry about them, second, I worry about all the people that work for me, making sure that they get everything out of their life they want. And then I'm third. And I got to tell you, if I take care of 1 and 2, I never have to worry about me. I get everything I want. And it's simply a matter of deciding what you want, capture that vision, and start finding a way to do it. Assume there's a way to do it, and start moving from here to there.
Well, I want to take you then and thank you for your time this morning, and we're going to put your contact information on the screen for people, and also your webpage where they can find your books and movies.
Great.
And again, thank you for taking the time this morning to visit with us, and I think that your story could certainly help somebody out there who desperately needed to hear what you had to say.
Well, it's an honor to be with you, and I certainly appreciate the work you do, and you really make a difference, and I'm just proud to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all for joining us this month, and we'll be back for more of our program later in the next quarter. I'm Dr. James Bissland. Have a happy, healthy, and safe month.
Health and Information, February 2024, with Dr. James S. Bissland, and special guest Jim Stovall. Produced and edited by Thomas Bissland, Jaimar Video Productions, and Cactus Jump Studios, Tulsa, Oklahoma. To contact Jim Stovall, 918-627-1000. Jim@jimstovall.com. jimstovall.com.